Hey everyone, welcome back. Last week we started talking about the nervous system, specifically the autonomic nervous system, or how our brain impacts our body when we start receiving stress stimuli. This week we're going to focus on the sympathetic nervous system, or as many people experience it, it's kind of like being in the red zone. So last week we talked about how it's when our adrenaline goes up, our dopamine receptors are engaged, and generally we can feel more excitable, and that can sometimes be felt as stress. What happens when we get into the sympathetic nervous system is that we are hyper alert. Technically, this means that our brain, or the part of our brain that experiences fear, is instantly activated. This affects the way we breathe, the way we put narratives onto a situation. And for those of us with PTSD, this can really affect our immediate responses to certain stimuli that remind us of the experiences that created that trauma in the first place. One of the main reasons humans even have the sympathetic nervous system dates back to the hunter-gatherer stage, and it's actually pretty prevalent in most animals. So of course there's always that predatory-prey relationship, and hunter-gatherer times we actually really valued our sympathetic nervous system, because what happens when we're in it, all of our blood flow actually goes into our limbs. It takes the blood flow away from our essential organs, which is why a lot of individuals that have PTSD, specifically PTSD that stems from early childhood, may experience digestive issues or inflammation far into adulthood. This transfer of blood flow into our extremities was essential for hunter-gatherers' survival. It put them in the fight or flight state, which helped them either fight or flee, run away from a circumstance that may or may not harm them. But for PTSD survivors, when we have an experience that reminds us of our traumatic incident, we will go into that fight or flight mode when we're in a sedentary state. And that's when having all of the digestion go into our extremities can not only impact the digestive health that we were talking about earlier, but it can impact reproductive health. It can also impact your lymphatic system. Here is when things like diaphragmatic breathing become really important. Figuring out and asking yourself questions like, is there a threat in this circumstance? What incidents could be causing this reaction? What can I do to help myself relax in this moment? These three things are the beginning of the conversation that you can have when you start to recognize yourself going into that sympathetic nervous system, yet also to allow your body to understand that it can still experience rest and that there isn't a threat currently happening. Alrighty folks, so that is a little introduction to the sympathetic nervous system. As you can see, it can really be detrimental when we're in our sympathetic nervous system involuntarily, specifically when we're sedentary. There are times that the sympathetic nervous system can be beneficial, like when we're doing some exercise, when we're doing a presentation, etc. So definitely don't label the sympathetic nervous system as inherently bad. It's just something that PTSD survivors and future thrivers have a little bit more difficulty regulating their engagement with than individuals that may not have had the same experiences. Once again, thank you so much for tapping into this space, and we look forward to seeing you again next week to talk more about the lovely parasympathetic mode and maybe a little extra something about allergies. As always, follow, and we look forward to seeing you again.